2026 was a year of historic lows for homicide in the city of Norfolk. I have gone back to 1985, and we have never had a homicide number this low since then, and I suspect probably not that low for a couple decades before that. The best year that we had in Norfolk up till 2025 was 2005, where we had 27 homicides. This past year, we had 26. That is excellent news for the city. Absolutely excellent news.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I know there's no crystal ball that's going to tell you what's going to happen the next year or why rates go up or down, but if you had to credit anything, what do you think it was?
Phone's ringing. Do you want to re-ask or just want to answer?
You know the question at this point. Why do you think it was so low this year, past year?
Well, our historic low homicide number has both national causes and local causes. Nationally, we saw huge investments from the Biden administration in childhood poverty, in education, in infrastructure, which produces good blue-collar jobs, and a huge investment in community violence interruption. Locally, we saw the deployment of our police department in smart ways to focus on violent crime. We saw a big investment from the city of Norfolk in Community First and our other community violence interrupters. And we saw the responsible deployment of technology, things like the flock system that allowed the police both to be where they needed to be and solve cases that would not have otherwise been solved. This is a good national story, but it's also a good Norfolk story.
I'm glad you brought up the flock cameras. They're getting a bit notorious at this point, both good and bad. Do you think criminals are aware that, I mean, essentially they're getting caught when they flee?
Well, I can't get into the mind of the average wrongdoer, but I can tell you that one of the biggest ways that we can take a bite out of crime, and one of the only ways that we can deter crime, is by increasing the certainty of being caught. And I go to every murder scene personally, day or night, and I can tell you that I've watched the flock system solve cases that would have gone nowhere in years past. I can also tell you that flock is a privacy and a civil rights enhancer. In past years, if a certain street or a certain neighborhood saw an uptick in violence, the police would just be pulling everybody over in their cars, hassling people, trying to search their cars. None of that happens anymore and doesn't need to. The police are only stopping the cars that are connected to crimes or that themselves are stolen and therefore the object of crimes. So having flock both helps the police arrest people who wouldn't be arrested, and it helps law-abiding citizens not have unnecessary police contacts. It is a positive good.
Now, I'm switching gears a little bit, but you're not the only one that's celebrating a historic low. I think Newport News, they have a presser today at 2 o'clock for literally the same exact story, that they also had a low rate in homicide. Port Hampton cannot say the same thing. They had a particularly rough year. I don't know what the numbers are on that, but is it surprising to you that you're not alone on this, that Hampton Roads seems to be trending downwards in crime?
I'm not surprised that we're seeing generally lower violent crime and homicide rates. This is the product of the national investments that we saw during the Biden administration and with national trends. The FBI started keeping track of crime numbers nationally in 1961. 2025 will almost certainly be the year where, for homicides and violent crime, we will see the lowest number of crimes by population ever recorded. So this is very much a national story. Unfortunately, I don't know that these numbers are going to last. This may be a low watermark for us because the money, for example, that the Biden administration put into community violence interrupters, people like Community First here in Norfolk, the Trump administration zeroed that money out in early 2025. We've seen savage cuts to Medicaid, savage cuts to food stamps, savage cuts to things that promote good blue-collar jobs. So all of these social supports that have been major contributors to this decrease in crime, the Trump administration has knocked out from under everybody. So I hope that we see another good year, but I want to manage expectations. And if people see these numbers go up, remember that it's not because the police forgot how to police, or prosecutors forgot how to prosecute, or city leaders stopped caring. it's because the big macro factors are under attack from Washington.
Now, how many, I'm switching gears a little bit, but do you know the number from last year, how many homicides there were?
Yes.
Or not, sorry, not 2025, 2024.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
So we've seen a huge decrease over the last 4 years. COVID saw a huge spike in violent crime numbers nationally and in Norfolk. We saw a number of 63 homicides the year before I took office in 21, 62 my first year in 2022, 42 in 2023, 37 in 2024, 26 in 2025.
That is a huge downward trend.
It is a huge drop. And by the way, it is a huge drop from historical numbers. You know, most people would think, well, in 1991, things must have been better. We had roughly 90 homicides in Norfolk in 1991. We're down to 26 now. This is another one of the big good news stories over the last 30 years. Homicide rates are a fraction of what they were 30 years ago. By the way, one person who does not deserve any credit for these falling murder numbers is me. I deserve no credit for this, and I want to be very clear about that. Prosecutors do not control the crime rate. We don't control the crime rate any more than weathermen control the weather. What I do take credit for, however, is staying the course. When I came in with those high homicide numbers, people criticized me for being a reformer and believing in criminal justice reform. They pushed me to follow failed 1990s policies, and I refused. So I pursued criminal justice reform, fewer felony convictions, sentences that were appropriate instead of excessive, no children to adult prison, a reduction in the people on supervision. So I saved hundreds, if not thousands, of years in prison at $60,000 a year, hundreds of people not made felons who didn't need to be felons. And I proved that you didn't need to choose public safety or civil rights, that these were complementary values. So what I'm very proud of is that after 4 years, and after my saying for 4 years, that criminal justice reform and public safety are complementary values, we have the living proof here in Norfolk. That's something that I'm very proud of.
What would you say to the men and women who put on the badge every day and walk around, and they are the ones that are essentially meeting criminals out on the street, and your relationship with the chief of police on this?
I have a lot of admiration for Chief Talbot, our chief of police. He is a very smart, cutting-edge chief and understands how to use the talent in his department. The mid-level supervisors and the men and women who are in patrol cars running patrols are doing good work. They are making do with fewer officers but being more effective than they were in years past. And one of the things I'm proud of is having built a relationship with both the chief and with the police department where we are sharing criminal intelligence on a weekly, if not daily basis to make sure that we're targeting the people who are dangerous and violent, and therefore being educated about offering breaks and diversion to everybody else. I also want to say a special thank you to Community First, to our violence interrupters, both official and unofficial, and to community organizations like Stop the Violence, who have been out there doing the hard work behind the scenes. It's very hard to measure something that doesn't happen, but we know that they are making a difference and that they are also helping to make our city safer.
My last question, and honestly, I might be talking out of context here because it may not even be your city, but I know in the newsroom it's been a bigger conversation. That we've never seen this number of homicides from kids, though. That's the one thing that's really stuck out, is that it's a lot of teenagers shooting other teenagers. There was a case, like, I think VB, they're looking for like a 13-year-old and like a 14-year-old for murder. Domestic violence also seems to be a huge factor in this. I mean, is there anything that you would say about, I know you mentioned the social things that are taking this away with Medicare and things like that, but anything that you would say about kids and violence starting in the home that you have been seeing, or anything that you would say to deter this at all?
We're fortunate that the overall numbers are still down, including with domestic violence homicides and even with juvenile homicides. You know, we go from 63 to 26 by having homicide fall across the board. Still, 26 homicides is 26 too many. We understand that. But we And what we want to do is to let people know, if you see a family member or a friend who appears to be in a cycle of domestic violence, offer help. Well, there are resources. There's the Norfolk Family Justice Center. There are nonprofit groups who help people who are suffering from domestic violence. When it comes to children, one of the biggest things that we can do is to make sure that our guns are safely stored and away from children, both from our own children, who are just as much of a risk of hurting themselves with guns, either on purpose or by accident, or hurting others, but also to reduce the number of guns stolen out of our cars and out of our houses that then can be used in subsequent crimes. So prevention is always better than the cure. It's always much more effective. But we have to mind our own circles and then move out from those circles as we try both to be responsible citizens and to be helpful citizens and good Samaritans.
Finally, is there anything else that you want to tell me, or anything that we didn't touch upon? Any other statistics or anything else that stuck out this year?
Oh.
This is speak now, or you don't have to.
Well, we haven't had just a good year for homicides. Violent crime is down across the board. Property crime is down across the board. This is a good year. We will still see homicides. We will still see other crimes. That's unfortunately a part of life. But it's important that just like if we have a cold day in the summer, we still remember what season it is, or a warm day in the winter, that we look back, zoom out, and say, what are the macro trends? We need to watch the climate and not just the weather.
All right, you're quite done. Thank you so much for your time.